Geetika, we can start.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Geetika Dayal, Executive Director, TIE Delhi NCR, and a very warm welcome to all of you for the Roadshow event for Prarambh, the Startup India International Summit, which is scheduled on 15th and 16th of January. As you know, this is the 5th anniversary of the Startup India program, which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister. And this has really helped us in accelerating the startup ecosystem in India. We are now coming together at Prarambh to celebrate that, and it will be a collaborative effort of several industry organizations such as FICCI, TIE, IAN, IBCA, NASSCOM, and CII. As we take this session forward today, I would request all of you who are part of the event, watching us, listening in to us, to please put in your questions into the comments and the chat section of YouTube as well. We will try and address as many of them as possible as we go ahead with the session as well. So once again, a very warm welcome. Without taking too much time, I would like to straight away welcome the TIE Global Chairman, Mahavir Sharma, who's joined us today to deliver the inaugural address. Welcome, Mahavir. Over to you.
Thank you, Geetika. Good evening, everyone. And it's a pleasure and honor to be part of the Prarambh event, which Government of India, DPIIT, has initiated. At TIE, we are very, very thankful and we are hopeful that this will create a great milestone in the startup ecosystem of not just India, but all the BIMSTEC countries, which is what the intention of this event is. For those of you who don't know TIE, I'll just go over a quick introduction on TIE. TIE is a global organization founded in 1992 in Silicon Valley. We have 60 plus chapters across the globe. We are mostly in the US and North America and India. We have about 13,000 plus members across the globe. We have 5 pillars that we need to work on as TIE. One is education in entrepreneurship. One is mentoring. Then we have incubation, and then we have investment, and then also we have networking. So the idea of TIEs and all these 5 pillars totally sinks in with what this event intends to do. So for all the startups, we need to educate you onto the ecosystem, which is investments, which is collaborations, mergers, acquisitions, valuations, and this event will bring that to you. Mentoring, we have one-on-one sessions, and TIE is happy to be taking lead on that. We would be happy to look at your pitches. We would be looking at mentoring and investing both at the same time. While we are investing, we're asking you questions. It does kind of tell you what to do, what not to do. And those are the 2 pillars that we will cover. If for any reason a startup does not qualify to be pitching on those 2 days or exhibiting for any reason, we're always open. Our 24 chapters across India, one in Bangladesh, one in Singapore, Hong Kong. All these Asia chapters are more than happy to incubate you, to help you to reach a level where you can be invested. And while all of this is happening, I'm sure all of you will be networking amongst each other, and you will get to know all of us better. So this event actually falls absolutely in line with philosophies of TIE of promoting entrepreneurship and the startup ecosystem, and this is what we intend to do. 2 other things that I wanted to tell everyone while we are at it is that TIE has 2 very important programs called TIE Women Program and TIE Access Program, which have been launched last year. We are very much focused on promoting women entrepreneurship. Any of you who has co-founders, even as women, we have a global competition with $125,000 US prize money, equity free every year. The finals of which are held in December every year. I would honestly request you to participate. Reach out to the nearest TIE chapter and participate in the TIE Women competition. Also, we do want to encourage them. We want to give free membership to women co-founders. We really need to work with them. The other program is TIE Access. The TIE Access program is for the underprivileged people in the society, whether from from education point of view or financial point of view or for any other reason, we are launching this program for all those people so that you can all come together and free membership, networking, mentoring, and ultimately, if you reach a level where you can be invested, we could be part of that. The last bit that we have just initiated a couple months ago is something that we are very closely formed a small committee globally, three representations from the US and three from India, and Saurabh and I are both part of it, is a government relations committee, which is going to be working very closely with the government of both US and India for two things. One, of course, is policy at the early stage, idea stage startup ecosystem. Two is cross-border investments. So while larger funds and larger investments do come your way, but the bottom of the pyramid, the majority of the startups don't get investments. Individual investments of 50,000, 100,000 or smaller than that would only come through ease of policy and ease of cross-border investments coming in from US to India. So we're working on all of that. And also, we're trying to see if market access to startups who've been invested or who will be invested through this two-day program can actually reach out to the North American market, have an office, have a company incorporated in the US, sit in a Thai office. We have 22 offices in the North of America, where you can sit in the city of your choice for a nominal fee and actually reach out to the markets. And that's the other thing that Thai really wants to do for startups from India. So those are initiatives that we want to start grooming or start initiating from this two-day conference, and we must congratulate the government of India for such a great initiative. While on last bit of networking thing, I would like to also add that Thai's events globally are well renowned, and if you become a member of Thai, you will actually have a lot of mentoring, networking to do, but you will learn a lot. One such event which is about to come is Resurgent ThaiCon, which is from the 27th or 30th in New Delhi. The Delhi chapter is doing that. After ThaiCon, Silicon Valley, ThaiCon New Delhi is the #2 event globally that any chapter does. And I really strongly advise after this is over, do register for that. The Resurgent ThaiCon, 27th to 30th of January, right after this is over. With that, I would like to thank everyone, and I wish you all the best for the endeavor, the startup, and the venture that you've involved into. And we'd be happy to partner with you. We're already partnered with Government of India, DPIIT. We would also further take it to a level where you become successful entrepreneurs and you are mentors to others who will follow you. Thank you so much. Over to you, Geetika.
Thank you, Mahavir. Thanks very much. I'm sure it would be of great use to our listeners today to be able to know more about Thai and how they can benefit from this global network of Thai chapters. With that, I would like to introduce to all of you our guest of honor today, Padma Shri Saurabh Srivastava. He's the Chairman Emeritus of the Thai Delhi chapter. He founded Thai Delhi NCR, and he's also the co-founder of Indian Angel Network. He's been a past chairman of NASSCOM and is the chief mentor of the FICCI startup sector as well. So it's a great privilege to have him with us today as the guest of honor, and I would like to request him to deliver his address. We are all, I'm sure, quite keen to hear from him.
Thank you, Geetika. India has always been an entrepreneurial country, and we forget that barely 300 years ago, India accounted for 25% of global GDP. Same as China, same as all of Europe. But colonization and then India's own experiment with socialism put us back, and we slipped to single digits and below single digits as a percentage of GDP. But when we reopened the economy in 91, when everybody thought that this was the end of business in India, and there was a Bombay club worried about domestic companies being gobbled up, actually the reverse happened. The DNA came up and big businesses thrived. From making the worst auto components in the world, we started to be the leading exporter of auto components. And a new industry, the IT industry, came into being. In 30 years, when I founded NASSCOM in 88, it was a $100 million industry. It's over $200 billion today. In 30 years, 10% of GDP. But real entrepreneurship started around the turn of the century, around 2000, when the first VC fund started to happen. That was the time, as I mentioned, Thai movement came here, I set up Thai Delhi, and we started to do events. 2006, when I set up the Indian Angel Network, that became the first angel network to start doing angel investments. Ecosystem started building. Incubators came up. So I've been seeing this for a long time, but I will tell you what's happened in the last 5 years. In the last 5 years, there's been a total transformation. From seeing 200 entrepreneurs pitches a year when we started at IAN, there are now 10,000 entrepreneurs who come. And IAN is today probably the largest angel group in the whole world, not just in India. Thai Delhi NCR, which started only in 99, is now possibly the largest and the most active chapter in the whole Thai network around the world. That's on the back of what's happening. What happened was the Prime Minister's focus 5 years ago on startups. For the first time in independent India, the government recognized the role and the power of startups to actually contribute to employment and economic growth. And a lot of positive policies emerged out of that. And so not just the quantity, but the quality of startups and what they are doing changed dramatically. And when COVID hit us, we recognized why the investment in startups had been such a bright idea. Because 6-8 months ago, India imported everything, every single thing. Within 6 months, India exports everything. So whether it's ventilators, oxygen machines, sanitizers, test kits, every single thing. This didn't come from large business. This came from startups. So this is the quality of what's happened with startups. And today, if you look at what startups are doing, I should also talk about the rest of the ecosystem. There are like hundreds of VC funds. Number of incubators has multiplied several fold. And they're no longer just government incubators, a lot of private incubators. Eric here, who's going to do the special address, will talk about some of the things he's doing. And so startups today have a very different environment than even 5 years ago. So apart from the Prime Minister putting this focus and enabling policies, there's been a huge role played by DPIIT. It became the champion for startups. There wasn't a ministry for startups, but they became the ministry for startups. They became the partner for startups. They worked with all the government ministries and departments to help create enabling policies. Through Startup India, they took a slew of different initiatives and measures. So the first startup event was 5 years ago. And in some ways, that put the stake in the ground. And now we will have the second after a 5-year gap, where every single organization that has anything to do with startups is associated. I mean, I myself wearing hats of TIE and IAN and NASCOM, we're all associated, but we're not the only ones. Incubators, FICCI, which is the main partner here, CII, everyone is putting their heads together to actually make this work. And it's a great tribute for us in India that we have this massive event. And then a couple of weeks later, we have the big Thai event that Mahavir talked about. Huge opportunity for startups. And I would simply mention a few things about what startups in India are doing. So in the old days, startups would only set up a business which was focused on overseas markets because India was not a big market. So software services, I mean, the business that I come from, they thrived, not on the Indian market, overseas. Today, startups can hope to be unicorns and be billion-dollar companies simply by addressing the Indian market. That is what has fundamentally changed. Secondly, the quality and ambition of entrepreneurs who create startups has changed. They no longer are happy with a company that's worth $100,000 or even $1 million. something that 20 years ago we were all very happy with. They want to be at least $1 billion. So they want to do something that's large, has huge impact, and is global. Already, we have something like 33 unicorns. By 2025, we expect to have 100 unicorns. We have tens of thousands of startups right now. And by 2025, projection is for 60 or 70,000 startups. We are headed to being the second largest startup country in the world, second only to the US. And that is as it should be. You have the world's oldest and the world's largest democracies. And startups thrive in open, free environments. And there is this deep connect between the US and India on startups, on investing, on cross-border fertilizing, investors and companies working both ways. And that's been very beneficial for startups. So today, the kind of things that startups are doing in India. Yes, there's software services, there's building the new app, there's all those things. But today, startups are building affordable medical devices that can go to the masses in India that are a fraction of the cost of what's available today. They're doing breakthrough technologies, artificially growing liver and cornea, creating algorithms through which, by looking through the eye, you can judge the condition of the heart. What they're doing in the medical area, biotechnology, is unbelievable today. They're creating, for example, your MRI machines at a fraction of the cost, lenses that can be implanted in your eyes and then adjusted at will for the power that you want. This is all coming out of India today. They're creating businesses in education and in agriculture that you wouldn't have thought about. They're triangulating our strengths in space technology, along with artificial intelligence and the high bandwidth that we have around the country, to be able to predict what will have to farmers' crops, to be able to quantify damages, so that when government insures these crops, what should it actually pay? And if you look at where the world is going, many of the things that they're doing have a very large Indian market. So many have become and will become unicorns just on the back of addressing an Indian need. But what they're beginning to do is, just like the US and Silicon Valley, is today the leading provider of technology and solutions for the top 1 billion people in the world by income. And that is natural because the US is a high income country, and that's the need. India is setting itself up to become the top technology and solution provider to the world for the next 5 billion. India is the largest test base one could have in the world to build these solutions and roll them out. And when it's done, it will roll out to all of Asia, Africa. And actually, when you start to deliver virtually the same functionality at a fraction of the cost, startups from here will disrupt Western and global markets as well. And that is not so much as a threat, but a huge opportunity for the rest of the world. Because if healthcare becomes affordable, if education becomes easy, if medical devices are a fraction of the cost, all of these things, they'll benefit the whole world. So it will no longer be the case but the difference between India and China is that we are happy to co-create. It doesn't have to be done just by us. There's huge links with the US on most of the things that our startups do. It's an open, free market, nothing is hidden. And so when we succeed, hopefully, it will also be as good for us as it will be for the rest of the world. So those are the comments I wanted to make, and except to tell all of you, do register for the Startup India event. It will be a phenomenal event. The list of speakers is extremely impressive. There are thousands and thousands of startups that are going to be there, investors, and people from every section of society. So it'd be a great opportunity for you to be there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It is indeed a privilege to hear from somebody who has built several institutions that has changed the business landscape of our country and who remains as passionate and committed to actually making that change for the better. And we are, I think, all in a very privileged position to have him in our corner with TAI, with IEN, with FICCI, with NASCOM, I think with every institution and with now advising the government on certain key initiatives. So very, very glad that he could be here with us today to share his thoughts. And he's also been very actively involved in this event itself in helping curate it. And with that, I now want to invite Jasleen Lamba, the very reason for which we have all gathered here, to take us through a presentation about what Prarambh is all about and what the audience can expect from it. Jasleen, over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gitika. Just checking, can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Gitika. And I think Saurabh sir has already introduced the event pretty well, the way he explained the essence which he has captured. So I think I'll just go in detail about the event. And there are two more agendas that we wanted to add apart from Prarambh. One is state ranking framework, and secondly, the National Startup Awards. Just to give a brief about what Startup India is, Startup India is a flagship initiative of Government of India intended to build a strong ecosystem for nurturing innovation and startups in the country that will drive sustainable economic growth and generate large-scale employment opportunities. This initiative was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister on 16 January 2016, and we have seen a lot of transformations happening since I would say last 5 years. As you can see on your screen, India is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. We can proudly say that 45% of the startups are from tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Average age of any founder is just 31 years, which is very young as compared to the other developed and upcoming startup ecosystem. Each startup is on an average is generating 12 direct jobs. And in fact, when we talk about the indirect jobs, number is much more greater. We realized when we had launched this initiative, there was a requirement of, also recognizing, also defining the startup definition as per the government. And this is how we came up with a recognition criteria. And as of now, 41,000 startups have been recognized by DPIIT. Lastly, when we are talking about the startup ecosystem, it is not only the innovators and the startups whom we are supporting. Our vision is to create that ecosystem by helping out each and every enabler as well. So Startup India DPIIT works very closely with each and every state government, helping them in creating their own policies, refining the existing ones. And as of now, we can see that almost 30 states and UTs across the country have their own state startup policies. So quickly, how do we recognize a startup? It is a very simple criteria. In the last 4 years, we have tweaked our criteria a lot. The idea is to create, to be a nation of job creators and not a job seeker. So there are around 4 elements which are considered. One is, sorry, can you just, sorry, I'm just a second. Sorry, there was some background noise. One is if the company is incorporated as a private limited company, as a partnership firm, or a limited liability partnership. Second, the company incorporation date should not exceed 10 years. Thirdly, turnover for any of the financial years since incorporation should not exceed 100 crores. And fourth, which is a very subjective criteria, but the company should be working towards innovation, development or improvement of products or processes, or if it is a scalable business model with a high potential of employment generation or wealth creation. Recognition procedure is a very simple process for us. It's just a simple form which you have to fill, and it does not take more than 24 to 48 hours for anybody to get recognized. And there are various benefits which are aligned to any startup which gets recognized by DPIT, like ease in procurement, support in your labor and environmental laws. Also, there are tax benefits which are being provided. Quickly coming to the event now. Our event is known as Prarambh, aiming to bring India's entrepreneurial force onto the global map. Department for Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade is hosting the Startup India International Summit on January 15th and 16th. This summit will also mark the 5th anniversary of Startup India initiative, which was launched by the Honorable Prime Minister in July 16, 2016. The summit is aimed to lay a foundation for multilateral cooperation and engagement with countries from around the globe to develop and hone the startup ecosystem collectively. The 2-day long virtual summit will bring together over 200 marquee speakers across 25 countries to facilitate discussions on innovation, emerging technologies, policies, initiatives, enable government and international organizations to share their views, and set on fire the minds of young Indian entrepreneurs, driving them to solve the problems and challenges that matter, not just for India, but for the entire world. As you can see, the main objectives of the summit are to encourage and inspire the youth for innovation and entrepreneurship, exchange knowledge on the best practices, develop capacity, mobilize global and domestic capital for investment into startups, provide opportunities to startups for entering domestic and international markets, showcasing high quality, high technology, frugal innovation. In fact, along the inaugural ceremony, we are also launching a virtual startup showcase, which will be showcasing some of the best startups and innovations across the country. Lastly, also enabling ease of doing business for startups and investors. So this summit is going to be a gathering of innovators, entrepreneurs, investors, regulators, industry and academic luminaries from India and across the world, including BIMSTEC member states. Apart from deliberating on good practices from best of the ecosystem across the world, the sessions are designed to showcase the spread and depth of entrepreneurship based on innovation in India. The idea is to attain attention of global capital for startups in India, mobilize domestic capital, provide opportunities of accessing international market to our startups, and evolve enabling policy provision. So this is just a glimpse of the kind of sessions that we are holding during the event. We have tried to capture each and every element of the startup ecosystem, be it incubators, be it champions of change, domestic and global investors, entrepreneurship in educational institution, women entrepreneurship, each and every aspect. The agenda is very rich. I will also post my presentation. I will just post in the chat a link for our website, which has complete information about the agenda and the speakers and everything. You can also go and register yourself. Honorable Commerce and Industry Minister shall address a gathering of innovators, entrepreneurs. Additionally, the session shall also include remarks from dignitaries and representatives from BIMSTEC countries on improving international collaboration. Our event will end with a grand plenary, which is expected to be attended by the Honorable Prime Minister, and this will also be comprising of reporting on the proceedings of the entire conclave. Moving to my next agenda quickly, state ranking framework. The ranking of states and support to startup ecosystem was launched in 2018 with the key objective of encouraging states and union territories to take proactive steps towards strengthening their startup ecosystem. We have launched the third edition of our ranking framework and have made significant improvement in categorization of states. This framework contains 7 broad reform areas: institutional support, fostering innovation and entrepreneurship, access to market, institutional support, funding support, mentorship support, and capacity development of enablers, with 26 action points focused on specific outcomes. States and UTs have been divided into categories A and B for a uniformity and a level playing field. Best performing states will be graded in each reform area for an all-encompassing view of their startup ecosystem. We hope that after the success of last two editions, this year's state ranking framework will encourage greater innovation and participation from states and union territories across the nation. Well, the last chapter of this presentation is about National Startup Awards. As a successor to the first edition, National Startup Awards 2021 shall recognize and reward outstanding startups and enablers which have demonstrated exceptional capabilities, not just in terms of financial gains, but also for the measurable impact of the society. Consideration is also being given to champion sectors identified by Government of India with a focus on improving India's manufacturing capabilities towards the mission of an Atmanirbhar Bharat. The recognized entities will benefit from such recognition not only in terms of being able to attract more business, financing, partnerships, and talent, but also to enable them to serve as a role model for other entities, budding entrepreneurs, and to inspire them to be purposeful and responsible about their socio-economic impact. So for National Startup Awards 2021, we have 15 sectors and 49 subsectors and 6 special categories have been highlighted, which includes women entrepreneurship, impact in rural areas, campus startups, import substitution, innovation for COVID-19, and Indic languages. Just to quickly, this is a glimpse of the 15 sectors that we have identified, and 31st January is the last date for applying for the NSA 2021. Quickly, a glimpse of the fiscal benefits. A cash prize of INR 5 lakh shall be awarded to one winning startup in each of the subsector. The winner and 2 runner-ups shall be given opportunity to present their solutions to relevant public authorities and corporates for potential pilot projects and work orders. Winners and runner-ups shall also be given priority for participation in various national and international startup events being sponsored by DPIIT. To support the enablers, 1 incubator and 1 accelerator will also be given a cash prize of 15 lakhs. I would just take a moment to go back. So, we understand that NSA for us is not only about fiscal benefits. This is a glimpse of how we are still supporting our startups from our first edition. There are 7 categories which we have identified. A complete hand-holding is happening for all the 192 finalists, be it in international, be it ministry, be it any mentorship program, be it investors. We are still hand-holding them and taking them to the end of their journey. Thank you, Gitika. I was trying to be super quick because there was a lot to cover. I hope that I've been able to cover.
No, you were bang on time. Absolutely. Jasleen, as always, a wonderful presentation that you made. And really, it does highlight, and I hope the audience has been able to see the wide-ranging initiatives that the government has undertaken to support them and help them. So this is indeed a great time for startups in India or others who are thinking about starting up to start now with all these kind of measures that support them. So thanks very much. I hope it's inspired people to register and join us for various activities and to apply for the awards. With that, it's a great pleasure to welcome Mr. Devendra Gupta, Director Finance, GSIIDC, who has joined us today. I'm sure, from his schedule, it's not easy to find time, but thank you for sharing your valuable time with us today. We're all very appreciative of the work that is being done by the Delhi government, and we would request you to deliver the keynote address, sir. If you could just unmute the mic, sir. It is still on mute. Perfect, yes.
This is D.K. Gupta, Director DSIIDC, Government of NCT of Delhi. At the outset, I would like to convey my greetings and welcome to all the budding entrepreneurs and startups for joining this virtual roadshow of Delhi for Prarambh, the Startup India International Summit. I also extend my greetings to Shri Saurabh Srivastava, Chief Mentor FICCI Startup Sector and former Chairman NASCO. Again, Mr. Arik Anjule, Director ACIR and Executive Director Nexus Innovation Hub, and Mr. Mahavir Pratap Sharma, Chairman TIE India Angel. I am also delighted to know that Prarambh Summit, an initiative of DPIIT, Government of India, is scheduled for January 15 and 16, 2021. This is being hosted to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Startup India, launched by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi on January 16, 2016. I congratulate DPIIT Government of India, lead partner FICCI, and all other partners for this summit. The Indian startups are making a difference with their ideas, seeking innovative solutions, running successful ventures that generate employment for many, and are creating new sustainable ecosystems for our country. With the significant support of central and state government along with private sector, today India has an encouraging environment for startup to flourish. To attract the best innovations, startups and entrepreneurs from across the world to Delhi, the Delhi government has equipped academic institutions in Delhi. Government of NCT of Delhi has set up 11 incubation centers in the best academic institutes of Delhi, holding strong expertise in verticals like ICT, science and technology, management, pharmaceutical and biological sciences, humanities, and social sciences. Our national capital, Delhi, is also a hub of students, industries, and several prestigious institutions. And over the last few years, startup ecosystem here has emerged a plethora of opportunities for budding entrepreneurs. Delhi government is at an advanced stage of rolling out startup policy, which intends to provide benefits to startups like collateral-free loans, set up a dedicated helpline for startups to address their concerns, and help them use the government doorstep service. Delhi government is committed to foster a startup and innovation ecosystem of our country. It is also imperative that we continue to evolve and bridge the gaps in the ecosystem with new initiatives focused on supporting these brave entrepreneurs at every stage. We believe that Prarambh Summit will prove to be a great platform by bringing together the leaders of the Indian innovation ecosystem and facilitate the acceleration of the vibrant Indian startup and innovation ecosystem. This will surely accelerate our Indian startups and help them to achieve success and to reach greater heights. I appreciate that this roadshow series in various states is being conducted by FICCI to disseminate the important information about the summit. Further, I believe that all the key players of the startup ecosystem must strive to foster the ecosystem of our country. We believe that synergy which gets created with government, academics, private sector, investor organizations like FICCI comes together, always acts as a boon for flourishing the startup and innovation ecosystem. Further, I look forward participation of Delhi startups in the Prarambh Summit. I wish all the very best to DPIIT, Government of India, FICCI, and other partners for Prarambh Summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much for all your support and your time today. I would now like to request a special address from Eric Azule, who is the Director ACIR and the Executive Director Nexus Innovation Hub and Incubator. They've been doing some fantastic work nurturing cohorts of startups, and we would love to hear more about what they do and what they think about these programs that nurture and enable collaboration. Over to you, Eric.
Wonderful, and thank you very much, Geetika. I really appreciate being able to address here at the Prarambh for the event and the International Summit. As you said, I'm the director of ACIR, the Alliance for Commercialization, Innovation, Research, and the director for the Nexus Startup Hub. Based in New Delhi. It's one of the premier business incubators for startups in India, supported by the US government and the US Embassy here. So thank you again. It's an honor to be here. Thank you to FICCI and thank you to Ty to be able to address you and to talk about our experiences over the last 3 or 4 years, watching the entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem really flourish and grow here in India. Just some background, as some of my other colleagues have said, Of course, innovation and entrepreneurship are both values that are very deeply rooted in the history and the culture of the United States and India, and are now more important than ever as there's a focus been in the United States and in India on growing those systems. One of the things I think is really not mentioned or emphasized enough in the United States and in India is that, you know, the majority of new jobs are created by the small businesses, by the entrepreneurs and startups. So the promotion of entrepreneurship is important not only economically in both of our countries, but culturally as well. In India, we have the third largest startup ecosystem in the world here, and promotion of innovation and entrepreneurship is a priority of the Indian government. And we've seen that with the amount of resources they've put in to supporting entrepreneurs and supporting the ecosystem. So this is something that's, you know, very dear and very close to both my heart and for the US government, of being able to support startups and entrepreneurship, both in India, and then working with the deep economic ties we have with India, with the United States, to help both of those countries flourish economically and culturally. But to specifically talk about Nexus and the program that we've come here to help in India is, you know, and why it came to India. It was 2017, and there's been some great strides made in the entrepreneurship ecosystem here in India. But there was a report that came out from the Indian government, specifically by Niti Aayog, on entrepreneurship in India. And it specifically said that at that point, even though there had been a lot of support given, the lack of effective business incubators was one of the most principal shortcomings that need to be addressed to evolve the dynamic ecosystem in general to help innovation and entrepreneurship in India. This was an essential part of Prime Minister Modi's Startup India initiative in establishing business incubators. But at that point, even though there was many incubators, but the incubators that we had seen in the United States were different, and the quality of in-country models were hard to find in India. We had seen much more of a kind of co-working space of the incubators, which is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And in a growing and flourishing ecosystem like India's, there's room for all types of support organizations. But the incubators that we'd seen were not the same that we'd seen in the United States. So the idea was to start a business incubator in India, supported by the US government, to kind of teach best practices of the United States, of some of the better incubation centers around the world, like Silicon Valley, like Austin, Texas, like the Research Corridor in Boston, or the Research Triangle in the North Carolina areas. Bring those best practices on entrepreneurship, on innovation and incubation, and bring them to India so they could match some of the best practices here in India. And by bringing those two together, to be able to create some and support startups that would not only be successful in India, but be successful on the world stage. And this was the first ever initiative by the US government to do this. This is nowhere else in the world is a startup incubator being funded by the US government. That was what started this Nexus Startup Incubator. That's what brought me to India. I've been living here in Delhi now for the last 3.5 years. I'm right now in Austin, but I'll be returning to Delhi next week. And I think it's been extraordinarily successful. We're now starting our 12th cohort. We've graduated over 124 companies, and those companies have gone to raise over $10 million in outside funding and create thousands of jobs. This is not to say, how fantastic the Nexus Incubator is. I mean, I could talk about that, but the idea is more to just show that, combined with the best practice from the United States with the best practice of India, the support for Indian startups is greater than ever. And it's not just because of what we do. It's absolutely cannot be done by ourselves. Entrepreneurship is so hard to do, and supporting entrepreneurship is so hard to do. And so by us, the Nexus Incubator, coming with all the partners that we have here, and most of my colleagues right here today, my esteemed colleagues, are members of that. So Startup India, of FICCI, of TIE, of IAN, that we work with together. This has been one of the most proudest things that I think we've done here at Nexus, because what we saw 3 or 4 years ago was that there was this growing ecosystem, and there's this growing partnerships But still, each of these organizations in general were kind of working in a very fragmented way. And the best ecosystems around the world, when you look at best practices of what separates something like a Singapore or an Austin, Texas, or a Silicon Valley from other areas, you really find that there's this kind of this giving back and this, how can we support each other? And it's not just in my sector versus another sector. It's not fragmented. It really is an ecosystem. And that, I think, is what we've seen over the last 3 years really grow here in India through the hard work of companies like organizations like FICCI, like TIE, like Startup India that we work with. And that's really been a fundamental change in what we've seen over the last 3 years. So I always like to say that, we've come a long, long way in the last 3 or 4 years. We have a long way to go. Make no bones about it. But the progress that we've seen in the last 3 to 4 years has been phenomenal. And the idea that when we came in for Nexus to say, this is what we want to do to start showing kind of best practices in incubation innovation. Again, we feel like we've been very successful with our partnerships here, but it is no longer the situation we were in 3 years ago. There are some great incubators out there. There are some great organizations that are providing on-the-ground support. We've seen the policies of the Indian government, both on a federal and national level, on a state level, and as we see now with Delhi on a municipal level, of providing real functional support to startups. That just wasn't there. Forget 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And I think that is really something that we should all take great pride in. And this example right now of this international summit and of this Prarambh event is just another example of the partnerships of companies and organizations coming together to provide startups with the level of support that they just didn't have before. And so that is something that I think is, really a matter of pride for me, for ACIR, and for Nexus to be able to see this and to see this maturation of the ecosystem. Another thing I want to mention is that a lot of times in the news, when we talk about startups, there's a lot of focus on the large companies, right? There's on the unicorns. In the United States, you talk about the Teslas, the Apples, the Googles. In India, the Flipkarts, the Swiggys, and we should celebrate that. Those are great motivational stories to talk to young entrepreneurs and say, look what you can achieve. But I do want to focus, and what we do focus at Nexus is kind of the micro. We talk about the small startups, and I mentioned this about the jobs creating and the investment that they gather and the economic growth that they support. We talk about some of the smaller companies, and I think Saurav mentioned this as well, that if you can get the small startups and you have a $1 million market, a $2 million market, you have 10 to 12 employees, and you're growing and you're working. That is fantastic. And that is really the backbone of what, the India small business and entrepreneurship, and in the United States as well. Those kind of companies, let's be honest, will never really attract a VC, right? It's too small. But they are absolutely essential to the growth of the economic growth of both countries. And to me, actually typify what a real small startup is. Now, we hope those companies will become unicorns, absolutely. But if they don't, and 5 years later, they're still plugging along and they've grown 10% per year and they've got 10, 15, 20, 40 employees, that's fantastic. And that should be celebrated as well. So I just want to give the idea to entrepreneurs that, yes, of course, we hope one day you will be like grow to be one of the largest companies like a Google or an Apple. But the vast majority of the startups are extremely successful that don't have to be those kind of levels of the unicorns. And so that's something that I want to encourage as well, because that's where you really see the culture of entrepreneurship when it permeates all of these cities, not only tier 1, but tier 2s and all throughout India. So again, I think just showing the organizations here that are present today that are supporting the Prarambh event as a wonderful example of the support being given to Indian startups. At Nexus, we are extremely proud and happy to do this and to show the best practice between the United States and India. And I want to thank everybody and certainly encourage them to sign up for this organization. If you're interested in incubation, come to us at Startup Nexus. We're happy to do it. But thank you again, Geetika, for this. And we are very, very happy to support not only startup ecosystem in general, but the specific event, Startup India and TIE and FICCI. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Eric. Indeed, it is a great pleasure to collaborate, and I think it's made it all the more exciting for all of us to be able to work together. And being virtual, I think, has also enabled a lot of these interactions with you joining us from the US as we speak today. There are some questions that we have here with us that we'd like to take the opportunity, and I will address the first one to Mr. Srivastav because I know he has to leave soon. So this one is from Meghna Joshi, where she's asked about what suggestions would you give in terms of how to explore collaborations that will help startups to scale up. Typically, just exploring how a startup can scale up on the back of some of these collaborations.
So there are different kinds of collaborations. Firstly, if you're doing a startup, realize that if your success means success for many other people, you're more likely to succeed. But if your success means everybody in the ecosystem has to die before you succeed, it's hard for you. So very often when you're looking, if you're making a product or whatever, so very often people who you see as your competition may actually be your road to the market, your channel to market. Try and look at the ecosystem and say who all can you rope in who have a vested interest in your success. So that's the first thing I would advise startups to do. If you look at successful startups, they're very good at doing this because you have limited resources. You can change later. I mean, take Microsoft. They've had a strategy going into a new market. They'll have distributors. When the market becomes large, they come in and say, well, we'll do it ourselves now. You can do the same. It's okay. The distributors made money while they were doing their job. It's not that anybody lost, but you follow your strategy. The second thing is collaborate with other organizations, whether they are corporates or VC funds, who may be your next source of funding or who could use your product, maybe even who may acquire your company. So create a system where you're collaborating. If you're building a product, make sure it works with other products. And remember that if you're building a car, it needs to be able to drive on any kind of road. And if you're building a road, it must be able to host any kind of car. So if you want to build a car that only runs on the roads you make, your chance of success are quite small.
Great example. Thank you so much. There is another question here that Mahavir perhaps would fit in very well with some of the things that are being done at TIE, which is about how to promote entrepreneurial mindset among school students. And given TYE, perhaps you may want to share a little bit about that.
So thank you, Geetika. At TIE, we believe in starting at the bottom of the pyramid, starting early, and starting from the school. And the TYE program is competition for entrepreneurship where students from 9th to 12th grade across the world, across all chapters, can participate at the chapter level. They create an idea, they create a prototype, they create a website, they have a market plan, in a mix of 4 or 5 students of different classrooms. They then pitch. They're assigned a mentor at the chapter level who teaches them how to pitch, what they could do differently, what Saurabh was talking about, and how to be collaborative, how to portray your competition, how to judge all that. And once that is done, the finalist or the competition is held at the chapter level. The winners of the chapter level then go and compete globally across teams from schools across the globe. So all this exposure, all this mentoring, all this hand-holding makes them truly see the startup ecosystem, what's required, what are investors looking at, how should you get mentoring, how should you partner, what should be the scaling up, what scale up means. So all these terminologies are that's where it starts. And we continue to handhold them through them. We created a TIE alumni program where these school kids who participate in this program continue to be associated with the chapter they're in. going into TIE University, to education starting from school, alumni to university. And we have a university competition similar to the school competition, which goes all the way to the Rice Business Plan competition, which is a $1 million equity-free money. So TIE has a full-grown program starting from the schools. And I think you should just get connected to the chapter nearest you, and you should participate in the TYE program.
Thanks, Mahavir. Mr. Gupta, there is a question for you here from Tarun Kohli, where he's asked regarding the Delhi government programs, is there any link from where more information can be accessed about support schemes extended by Delhi government to startups? Just unmute it, yes. Sir.
Yeah, we are yet to offer certain schemes, and only then we can provide the link. At this stage, we don't have any scheme as such, because our startup policy is still in process.
Sure, thanks. Jasleen, there are a couple of questions with regard to this particular program that is being held. Rupal has asked if there are any collateral-free loans for startups expected to be launched at Prarambh. And similarly, there was another question with regard to any schemes or any expectations that incubators might have that they would be able to benefit from at Prarambh.
So, Geetika, before Jasleen answers, I will have to leave in a couple of minutes because I have to join the NASSCOM board meeting. If there were any other questions for me, I could do them first. Otherwise, I just want to apologize for being a bit overdressed. I caught a bad chill and I'm just not taking any risk. That's the reason why I'm a little overdressed.
I think we can all agree that you're looking extremely impressive and handsome, but I think
I don't hear that.
Thank you for that.
I don't hear it that often, so thank you.
No, thank you very much. I think that's fine. There are a few questions which are more related to the event and how to register for it, which we will leave with Jasleen, and a couple of questions for Eric. But thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you feel better soon.
Thank you very much. And Mahavir, Eric, Jasleen, Vishal, apologies for leaving a few minutes early. Bye.
Thank you. Jasleen, you want to take the questions with regard to incubators and loans?
Yes. So as of now, we are not expecting. So I really can't comment. But as of now, we do not have anything concrete. But I would suggest that keep yourself updated. Do attend the event. There's still a week to go. We hope for some good announcements, but there's nothing that I can confirm as of now.
Sure. Eric, there is a question about how can we access resources about best practices for startups in the US market, which startups in India can learn from?
Sure. Thank you for that. So one of the things that we do at Nexus, besides there are periodic conferences and workshops that we do, but one of the biggest things that we do is our actual Nexus incubation program, where we demonstrate these best practices in entrepreneurship and incubation. As luck would have it, we are just about to start our 12th cohort at the end of January, and we're still taking applications right now. So if any startups are interested in that, they can go to www.startupnexus.in and put in their application. It is very competitive, but we take companies from startups from all over India. And as I think I mentioned before, it is 100% supported by the US government. So there is no equity. We don't take any equity. We don't take any commissions or fees. And during this 9-week program, we do all under the best practices from the United States. When appropriate, we can link you to organizations in the United States as well for soft landing, and really try to help startups just grow, scale up, and be successful. Of course, with the support of our wonderful partners like yourself from TIE and FICCI and Startup India as well. But so if any companies or startups are interested in this, please take a look. I even put it in the chat there. The application deadline is the 15th. We'd love to have more startups from all across India, and look forward to seeing your applications.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Amar, there is a question from you about whether social sector startups can participate at Prarambh. Yes, I will take that question. Please do. You're most welcome. This is for startups from all sectors, and there is a special focus on the social sector as well. So please do that. Justly now, as we come to the last minute of the program, a few questions around whether this event is virtual or physical. If it is virtual, where can they go? How can they register? Just a word from you around that before we wrap up.
Sure, Gitika. So, yes, it's a virtual event. I, in fact, have posted the website link as well on the chat. It's a very simple process. You can just go and register yourself. As soon as you register, you will get a confirmation email. You will also be getting all the recent updates, agenda, speaker profiles. Everything has been updated on our website. So I would suggest that please visit the Prarambh website, and this will be your go-to page till the next 15th and 16th of January.
Thank you very much. And I think with that, it's a wrap. Thanks for a wonderful roadshow to all the guests over here. Thank you to Vishal and his team at FICCI for helping put this all together with us. It's a real pleasure to work with all of you. Mr. Gupta, Mahavir, Eric, Jasleen, thank you once again for this. And look forward to meeting all of you at Prarambh again, and then thereafter at Resurgence TiECon later in January. So have a wonderful evening and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gitika.
Thank you. Thank you all.